Title: 5 Real Horror Stories That Will Keep You Up All Night, True Halloween Scary Stories and Unexplained Events. Story 1. Jack-o'-lantern the trick-or-treater who never left. It was Halloween night in 1988, in a quiet neighborhood just outside Columbus, Ohio. The air smelled of damp leaves and candle wax from carved pumpkins flickering on porches. Linda Harris, a young nurse working the night shift most days, had the evening off for once. She decided to stay home, hand out candy, and finally enjoy the calm of her new neighborhood. The doorbell rang almost constantly between 7 and 9. Witches, pirates, superheroes. She smiled at them all, dropped chocolate bars into their buckets, and watched them hurry down the street toward the next house. By 9:30, the flow of kids had slowed to almost nothing. She began turning off the lights and collecting empty candy wrappers when she heard another soft knock. When she opened the door, a boy stood there, small, maybe 8 or 9 years old, wearing a faded clown costume. His mask was old-fashioned, papier-mâché painted white, the kind from the 1950s. He didn't speak. He only held out his pillowcase. Linda smiled, trying to break the tension. "Late one out tonight, huh?" she said, dropping a few candies inside. The boy didn't react. No thank you, no movement, nothing. Just a stare through 2 black holes in the mask. When she gently closed the door, she peeked through the window, expecting him to walk away. But he didn't. He was still there, staring at her door. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Finally, she opened the door again. "Sweetheart, it's time to go home. Where are your parents?" The porch was empty. Shaking it off as exhaustion, Linda locked the door, double-checked the windows, and went to make tea. A sudden knock at the back door made her freeze. No one ever used that door. It opened into the fenced yard. When she switched on the porch light, she saw small muddy footprints leading up to the glass door, but none leading away. The curtain moved slightly, as if caught by a draft, yet no window was open. Her phone lines were acting up that night. A soft static hum filled the receiver when she tried calling her sister. So she stayed awake, lights on, until dawn. When she finally stepped outside the next morning, she noticed the footprints again, tiny, pointed toward the house, fading at the step. A police report filed later that day described the prints as belonging to a child's shoe, size 3. The officer mentioned something odd. Neighbors had seen a boy matching her description that same night, standing under a streetlight 2 blocks away, never moving. Over the years, stories of the silent trick-or-treater became local legend in Ohio. Some say he was a boy who died in a house fire decades earlier. Others think it was just a prank. But Linda swore she heard the soft knock again every Halloween night, always around 9:30. Story 2. Candle the Haunted House Shift. In October 2003, 20-year-old Evan Turner took a part-time job at a seasonal haunted house attraction in rural Kentucky. It was the kind of place that popped up every year. Abandoned barns turned into mazes, plastic skeletons hanging from the rafters, fog machines filling the air with artificial mist. Evan needed the extra cash. He was a college sophomore and happy to take any night job that paid by the hour. He was assigned to a section called the Butcher's Cellar, a dimly lit corridor with hanging fake body parts, a flickering red bulb, and a rope he was supposed to pull whenever guests entered, triggering a recorded scream. The first few nights went as planned. Teenagers laughed and screamed, couples held hands, and Evan jumped out in costume like clockwork. But by the 4th night, he started noticing things that didn't belong. During a break, he went to the control booth where the monitors displayed live camera feeds from each section. On one screen, the one covering his corridor, he saw something strange, a tall figure standing directly behind him. It wasn't another employee, no one that tall was on staff. When he turned around in real life, there was no one there. He brushed it off as a camera glitch. But then it happened again. On Halloween night, the busiest of the season, Evan worked the closing shift. The last group of guests had already left. He stood in the dark hallway, waiting for his supervisor to turn off the power, when he heard slow, dragging footsteps behind him. He thought it was Mark, another actor who liked to joke around. "Nice try," he said, not turning around. The footsteps stopped. Then, just as he exhaled, the faint sound of breathing, heavy and uneven, came from right behind his ear. He spun around and saw nothing but fog and empty space. He grabbed his flashlight and shined it down the hallway. For a split second, in the strobe light's flicker, he saw a man, pale face, torn mask, head tilted unnaturally to one side, standing at the far end. When he blinked, the figure was gone. Evan ran to the control booth, heart pounding, and rewound the camera feed. This time, the monitor showed something even worse, the tall masked figure still standing behind him as he fled, watching. When management checked the footage the next morning, that part of the tape was blank, static from the moment the figure appeared. Evan quit that day. The haunted house closed early the following week. The owner told local papers it was due to electrical faults, but employees whispered otherwise. They said the building used to be a slaughterhouse, condemned after a fatal accident in the 1970s, when a worker got caught in the hooks of the meat line and was never found whole again. And sometimes, on security footage, a tall shadow still walks those halls, long after the fog machines stop. Story 3. Vampire the Basement Party. In the fall of 2010, a group of college friends decided to throw a Halloween party at an old rental house near Grand Rapids, Michigan. The house belonged to one of them, Megan, a junior who had inherited the place from her late uncle. It had been sitting mostly empty for years, and Halloween felt like the perfect excuse to fill it with life again. By 8 p.m., the house was crowded. Cobweb decorations hung from the ceiling, a fog machine puffed out artificial mist, and old rock music played from a dusty stereo. Everyone was in costume, zombies, vampires, clowns, and the energy was high. Around midnight, the power flickered. The stereo cut out, followed by laughter and groans. "Old house," Megan said, rolling her eyes. A few people used their phone flashlights, and that's when Ryan, her boyfriend, noticed a narrow door under the staircase. "Basement entrance?" he asked. Megan frowned. "I didn't even know there was one." The door was locked, sealed with a rusted padlock. Someone fetched a screwdriver and popped it open easily. Too easily, Megan thought later. A damp smell hit them as the door creaked open, revealing wooden stairs leading into darkness. They joked about finding spiders or a body, but curiosity won. Ryan led the way down, phone light cutting through dust and cobwebs. The air grew colder with each step. The basement was small, lined with rotting furniture and boxes labeled with faded handwriting. Against the far wall stood a mannequin, human-sized, draped in an old sheet. When Ryan pulled the sheet off, the laughter stopped. The mannequin was dressed in a costume identical to Megan's. Same witch's hat, same black dress, same silver necklace. Its plastic hands were smeared with something dark, almost like dried paint. But there were no art supplies, no props, nothing that explained it. Megan, pale, whispered, "Who put this here?" Everyone swore they hadn't. As they backed away, someone noticed Polaroid photos pinned to the wall behind it, all of Megan, taken during the party. In one of them, she was standing in the kitchen, smiling, and behind her, a faint shape of someone in her same outfit loomed near the window. They left the basement immediately and called the police. Officers arrived an hour later. They searched the house, the yard, and the basement, but found no mannequin, no photos. The wall where they had been pinned was bare, as if nothing had ever been there. The police wrote it off as a prank, but Megan moved out 2 weeks later. Months later, she received a message on social media from someone using a fake account, no profile picture, no name. The message read, "You looked better in the basement." Detectives traced the account to a public library computer but never identified who used it. Some neighbors later mentioned the house's history, that the uncle who owned it before Megan vanished in 1998, last seen entering that same basement to fix the lights. The house was sold quietly, and the new owners sealed the basement door shut. Story 4. The Mirror in the Woods. In 1995, 3 high school seniors from Ashford, Oregon, Lisa, David, and Claire, went missing after taking part in what locals called the reflection game. Every small town has its ghost story, and Ashford's was about an old mirror hidden deep in the Douglas woods. According to legend, it had once belonged to a fortune teller who lived there in the 1930s. After her death, the mirror supposedly remained haunted, a window, people said, not to your reflection, but to something that mimicked you. The rumor among teens was simple. If you found the mirror at midnight on Halloween and said, "I want to see myself," 3 times, your reflection would move before you did. Lisa, the brave one, decided they'd test it for fun. She had heard from her uncle, a forest ranger, that there were remnants of an old cabin near the creek, the supposed spot. They brought flashlights, a camcorder, and a hand mirror Lisa found in her grandmother's attic. Around 11:45 p.m., they parked near the trail and started hiking. The forest was silent except for the crunch of leaves. The deeper they went, the thicker the mist became. When they finally reached a clearing, they found it. A frame of rotted wood still standing among ferns, and leaning against it, a mirror. Its glass was cracked in one corner, but it reflected perfectly. They set up the camera, laughing nervously, and waited until midnight. On the tape, which police later recovered, you can hear Lisa say, "I want to see myself," once. Then again. And a third time. At first, nothing happens. Then, faintly, the reflection of the 3 teens blinks out of sync, their movements just slightly delayed. Claire gasps, says, "Stop," and the tape shakes as someone grabs the camera. The video ends abruptly. The next morning, the ranger station received a call from a hiker who found the group's car abandoned. A search party was launched. David's flashlight and backpack were found by the creek, the batteries drained. The camera was recovered a few feet from the mirror, its lens cracked. Lisa and Claire were never found. When detectives reviewed the footage frame by frame, they noticed something unsettling. In the final seconds before the video cuts off, Lisa's reflection smiles, though her real face remains still. The mirror itself was removed and placed in evidence storage. But during cataloging, the technician reported that the inside of the glass appeared to have fingerprints pressed into it, from the inside out. In 1997, the evidence room storing the mirror caught fire. No cause was ever determined. The official report ruled the disappearance an unexplained wilderness incident. But locals still tell the story. Every Halloween, hikers say they find shards of glass scattered near the old clearing, and if you pick one up, just for a moment, your reflection smiles before you do. Story 5. Skull the Last Doorbell. In October 2019, an elderly couple, Harold and Diane Mitchell, lived on the edge of a quiet suburb in Amarillo, Texas. They were known for their elaborate Halloween decorations, fake cobwebs on the porch, orange lights around the windows, and a life-sized witch figure by the mailbox. Every year, they handed out full-sized candy bars, a neighborhood favorite. That Halloween night began like all the others. The first group of kids arrived around 6:30. Costumes, laughter, and the crunch of leaves filled the street. By 9 o'clock, most of the lights around the neighborhood were off, and the flow of trick-or-treaters had slowed to nothing. Harold was washing dishes while Diane sat knitting in the living room. The doorbell rang, a single chime that echoed through the quiet house. She smiled, picked up the candy bowl, and went to the door. When she opened it, the porch was empty. She stepped outside, scanning the street. No kids, no footsteps, just wind and the rustle of dry leaves. She assumed it was a prank, teenagers playing ding-dong-ditch. But when she turned to go back in, she noticed something odd. All the porch lights up and down the street were off. Except theirs. An hour later, as they prepared for bed, the doorbell rang again. This time, several times in a row, ding-dong, ding-dong, ding-dong. Harold, frustrated, went to the door. He flung it open, expecting pranksters. But again, no one. The street light across from their house flickered out as he stood there. Then he heard something faint, the sound of children laughing, far away, like it came from the end of the block. He closed the door, locked it, and turned off the lights. But the ringing continued. Except, this time, the power was out. The doorbell shouldn't have worked at all. When Harold checked the circuit breaker, he found the wires to the bell had been cut clean through. He told Diane to call the police, but the phone was dead, and their cell reception had dropped. They sat together in the dark, the sound of faint ringing echoing through the house every few minutes. When police arrived the next morning, after a neighbor noticed their front door slightly open, they found the couple unharmed but shaken. The officers reviewed the footage from their new Ring doorbell camera, which had been recording all night. At 3:17 a.m., The video shows 5 children standing motionless at the foot of the porch, each wearing vintage costumes. A skeleton, a ghost, a clown, a scarecrow, and a witch. Their faces are still. They stare at the camera for 30 seconds. Then the screen glitches. When it clears, the porch is empty. The strangest part, the camera never recorded them arriving or leaving. Neighbors later mentioned that decades earlier, 5 children from that same street had disappeared on Halloween night in 1962 while trick-or-treating. Their bodies were never found. Now, each year, residents claim to hear that same doorbell, faint, distant, and always after midnight. And those who answer it say the same thing. They see 5 small figures at the edge of the lawn. And none of them ever move. These stories may sound like fiction, but every whisper, every photo, every missing name was pulled from real reports. If you want more true horror drawn from reality, subscribe and stay close. Because the next story might be closer to you than you think.